We're here at the Business and Culture Committee meeting yet again, and I'm going to ask the Director, Stephen Gillespie, to take us through items 1 and 2 on the agenda, which are the notice and summons of meeting and members' attendance and apologies. Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. So if I take the attendance, please. Councillor Jason Barr.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Raymond Barr, and Noah's running a wee bit late. Councillor Michaela Boyle.
Michaela sent apologies to me.
Okay. Councillor Shauna Cusack.
Stephen.
Councillor Emmett Doyle.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Mary Durkin.
Running late, but she'll be here.
Okay. Councillor Rory Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Rachel Ferguson.
Here, Stephen.
Alderman Darren Guy.
Here, Stephen.
Councillor Patricia Logue.
Just running late as well, Stephen.
Okay. And that's yourself, Aileen. Yeah. Alderman David Ramsey.
Apologies there, Stephen, for doing it.
Thank you. And Alderman Graham Ward. Yeah.
Here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. I'm going to read the statement for remote meetings. I would like to remind everyone who is on remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via the Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting, and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes, and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of the Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council website, derrystrabane.com. Item 4 on the agenda is declarations of interest, and as always, we need them verbally. So as we go through each item, I will ask if there are any declarations, and if members could state those verbally. I'd be greatly appreciative of that. In terms, item 5 is Chair's business. The only councillor that has been in touch with me about any item of Chair's business is Councillor Doyle. So, Emmett.
Thank you, Chair. And I think I see our newest member of Council, Conor Heaney there. Just want to say welcome, Conor. Over the last number of days, we've been waiting for a long time to hear back around the number of individuals and businesses that were affected by erroneous payments from the LRSS scheme. It now turns out that there's 480 businesses across the north, and it's in the region of 4.4 million that has been, according to the department, paid wrongly. So it's really just to highlight it and to ask. I'll just put a proposal here in the chat box just to try and figure out if there are any of those in the city and district. And I know that the department has given businesses 2 options. One, either pay it back directly, an appeal, or availing of a separate scheme where the money would still be available. So really just want to have those people identified and see if we can give additional support to move people onto different schemes if needs be. So I'll just put it in the chat box here, Chair. Thank you.
Right, I understand that. Councillor Doyle, do you have a seconder for that proposal? If not, I'm happy enough to second that. Stephen, would well, Councillor Barr has seconded that. Thanks, Jason. Councillor Barr, would you like to speak to that?
Sorry, Rory. No, I'm fine. Happy enough with the proposal, Rory, as it is. Thank you.
Cheers, Jason. Stephen, would you like to comment on it?
Certainly. I mean, as officers, we would happily work with any business to help and guide and advise. I mean, I do see one issue in that if the businesses have applied directly to the department, there's a GDPR issue that the department won't necessarily give us the information of any businesses, but we could certainly put it out through the various channels, and any business that has been affected could contact the business team, and we could try and help where we can and try and support in terms of what other funds are available or what their options might be. But as I say, I don't believe that the department would give us a list per se of businesses in the council area, but we can certainly put it out that we are available to help, and any businesses that are affected could contact us directly.
Thanks for that, Stephen. Would anybody else like to comment on this? If you could just indicate in the chat box. Thanks for that, Alderman Hussey. So that seems to be fine. In terms of chairperson's business, I have 3 items that I want to raise. The first one would be welcome, Councillor Heaney. It's great to have you on board, and I'm going to say a further goodbye to Mickey Cooper. He's probably watching online, knowing him. So my understanding, Councillor Heaney, is that you will be a member of this committee, but you're not officially nominated onto this committee, and that needs to happen at full council. So you can speak on any item you want to, but you don't have voting rights, or you can't propose or second a recommendation. But once full council happens at the end of this month, you'll be nominated onto whatever committees the party sees fit, and you'll have full rights at all of those committees. So I'd just like to clarify that. But welcome, Connor. The second item I wanted to raise very briefly was that Ramadan started yesterday. And it's a holy month in the Muslim calendar, and I wanted to just send our council's best wishes to Muslims across our city and district, and to wish them Ramadan Mubarak. So that's the only Arabic I'm going to be using today in this meeting. And the third item that I wanted to raise was about the Job Start Scheme. So that is a programme devised and launched by the Department for Communities, and there's a budget of approximately £20 million for this financial year. And its aim is to get 16 to 24-year-olds work experience, employment experience, to enhance their employability and to improve their skills, with the ultimate aim of getting them into employment. We have the highest unemployment in the north. We have the highest youth unemployment in the north. So I think we as a council, there's room for our council area and the citizens of this council to benefit massively from this scheme. But I haven't heard much about it through council. So my question to Stephen would be, are we partaking in the scheme? Are we offering employment and work experience opportunities to 16 to 24-year-olds who are currently unemployed or economically inactive? And secondly, are we doing anything as a council to promote this scheme to employers that are based in our council area, to provide employment opportunities and work experience opportunities to young people in that cohort?
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually going to ask Kevin just to come in and talk on the skills side, but clearly the answer is yes to both, but I'll let Kevin go through the detail.
Cheers.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, no, I mean, in relation to the programme itself, clearly the first things to say is that it's a programme that employers apply to directly, that council doesn't act as an intermediary for. However, what we're doing is, as we do with our apprenticeship campaigns, with our wider skills academy campaigns, and with a suite of activities that we're involved in relation to skills, is that we are will be proactively over the coming weeks and months doing a couple of things. Number one, we're going to be promoting it broadly in relation to some social media activity that we're doing, but more strategically and more targeted. We are introducing the information and speaking directly to the employers who are involved in a range of our forums, whether it's our investors forum or our skills subgroups, such as our sectoral groups, which has got a good kind of cross section of employers on it. So we push it for sure, and we'll provide the support that's needed potentially for employers to understand the scheme and the mechanism, and even potentially broker a workshop if that's what's needed to help employers understand the potential here. In relation to the point about council, well, obviously that's something that this council has a track record on. We were the first council to introduce social clauses as widely across our contracts. We were the first council to introduce the ILM program, and we were very successful in doing that. So we can certainly talk to internally and look at this from a HR perspective and see whether there's something and there's opportunities for us as a council to avail of it. But yes, and absolutely welcome the program, and we'll be promoting it as heavily as we can.
Thanks for that, Kevin. I see Councillor Mellon, you'd like to come in. Aileen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I just want to welcome that as well, the new scheme for the 16 to 20-year-olds. Also, I was going to come in and say around maybe the workshops, such as we do with other new schemes that's coming, so that employers have a place to go to and a forum that they can ask the questions and see what's in it for them and what they have to give back as well. And there is advantages to employers coming together. There's obviously a financial advantage for them, and it can be a twofold way. You know, employers can come back out of some COVID restrictions or some COVID results of the businesses that they're in, that they might be feeling in or struggling in, that these people can come along and help build back up again as well. So that would be a good benefit to the employer. I just hope that the employers also give that same benefit back and use young people, the 16 to 24-year-olds, young adults, in a way that is efficient and effective to them for their job skills, in a way of having that state of readiness for permanent employment or further development. So I do think that workshop would be a great opportunity, and it doesn't need a proposal because Kevin has already offered that up, which is great. I would just look forward to that, and I'm sure everyone in this committee and beyond would encourage new employers to come along to them information sessions as well. I'm delighted to see a focus on 16 to 24-year-olds, and I welcome this from the department, because there are often a lot of apathy about in terms of ambition and opportunities within this city and district and afar as well. We're not inclusive, or we're not exclusive to them kind of feelings. So again, welcome it, and I look forward to the workshops and the young people getting a chance to have effective support for long-term employment or further development.
Thanks for that, Aileen. We have no further indicated speakers. So that's Chairperson's business completed. Next item on the agenda is agenda item 6, which is matters arising from our last business and culture meeting. There's 2 that I wanted to raise, and then I'll open it up to the rest of the members. Obviously, at the last meeting, we had the delegation from Invest NI, and unfortunately, a member from the Department for the Economy was unable to attend. Stephen, do we have an update on that meeting? We've been waiting quite a while about it. We've had various motions regarding the need for sub-regional targets, the need for an economic policy framework for the Northwest. So I would be keen to understand, and I'm sure members across the chamber would be keen to understand, do we have a date in the diary for the delegation from Invest NI and Department for Economy to come to speak to us about regional balance? And my second item was about the meeting request with the Arts Council about the flagship projects in Belfast. I know we agreed at the last meeting that we were going to request that meeting. So is there a date in the diary for that as well, Stephen?
Chair, there's been nothing further from Invest NI, and we didn't, obviously at the time last committee, we didn't set a date for them to come back, but if the members would wish us to pursue a date probably before the summer recess, so June or July, for Invest NI to come back and give us an update on that can certainly be done, and we can get a date in the diary. In relation to the Arts Council, we have written to them, the letter has come off, but we haven't had a reply back yet, and when we do, we'll furnish it to members.
Okay, thanks very much. I see Aideen has indicated in the chat box that the letter is gone, so thanks very much for that, Aideen. Councillor Doyle, you would like to raise an item on 47.
Thanks, Chair. It's the call for sub-regional targets. Sorry, I'm assuming just from the minutes that this was just a letter that was sent. I'm just wondering, Stephen, if that's the case and if we've had any reply. Thanks.
Yeah, it was a letter that was sent off, but we haven't had a reply yet, Councillor Doyle. But again, when we do, we'll furnish it through the committee.
Thank you, Stephen. No further questions or matters arising? None at all. So item 7 on the agenda is the Collaborative Resilience Programme update, and to present that we have Aideen. Aideen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to update you on the status of the proposed Collaborative Resilience Programme and to seek your approval for the adoption of a Memorandum of Understanding from the Arts Council of Northern Ireland to enable the transfer of funds to initiate the project. Members, you'll recall you received an information paper on this programme last October, and since this time Council officers have been in liaison with the Arts Council and the proposed 26 participant organisations in the refinement of the programme specification. This consultation was important to ensure that the programme would meet the needs of the sector, and as a result, the original draft of the programme has been adjusted and subsequently approved by the Arts Council. The significant adjustment is significant, but fairly simple and straightforward, in that it originally was proposed that there would be one tender for one piece of work to the value of £100,000, combining our own funds and the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. But following consultation and I suppose a discussion among all partners, it was agreed that it would make more sense to the Arts Council funding of £50,000 would directly support the revised Collaborative Resilience Programme, and Council's match contribution would be utilised in a separate standalone bespoke capacity building programme for cultural organisations. So in a sense, the first part of the programme with the Arts Council would do the resilience work and the resilience mapping, and Council would then deliver the second half directly. And that's really because it was felt this would be a more effective way of utilising the capacity building programme, and we wouldn't be tied to one organisation delivering the entire programme, which may make the flexibility of the programme somewhat cumbersome. There are no significant implications. In order for the Arts Council to transfer the money directly to councils to procure this resilience programme directly, they require the adoption of a Memorandum of Understanding outlining the programme commitments as detailed in the original terms of reference for the resilience programme. Officers will issue a tender for the delivery of this programme in line with Council's procurement policy. And members, you're asked to approve the adjustment to the proposed Collaborative Resilience Programme and to accept in principle the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding with the Arts Council.
Thanks for that, Aideen. That, I don't know who titled that page, but it's a real tongue twister. So we have two indicated speakers so far. So Councillor Heaney, would you like to comment?
Yes, thanks, Chair, and thanks for your comments at the outset of the meeting. Obviously, I don't have a vote in this as explained as yet, but I would just like to support the proposal and doing it. I think it's a welcome development to have this memorandum of understanding and the 50,000 for the groups that are participating. And it's obviously not the only support that the Department of Communities will be supporting the arts coming out, and the sort of successful meetings that have been happening place with the arts sector and the department with Martina Anderson in recent times. So I look forward to this moving ahead. Thanks, Chair.
Nicholas, you there. Next indicated speaker is Alderman Hussey. Derek.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I'm not a member of committee, but there is a phrase in the key issues, building capacity within the cultural sector. Could the officer expand on what is identified as the cultural sector? Thank you, Chair.
Nadine.
Yeah, this is primarily for larger cultural organisations based within the city and district. So it's a collaborative resilience programme. And apologies, there probably was more detail in the previous report that would have come to members. But it's similar to a programme that would have been delivered by Belfast City Council in conjunction with the Arts Council within the last few years. And it is really about the larger cultural organisations.
Supplementary, Chair, on that. There are many cultural organisations which are umbrella cultural organisations for many groups within our Derry City and Strabane District Council area. You know, they're not the art, excuse the expression, they're not the arty-farty type, but they are cultural organisations that represent many within our organisations. I hope the officer can understand where I'm coming from here, and I'm wondering, you know, are they included, or is it just your millenniums and your culture centres, etc., who we're talking about here? Thank you, Chair.
Do you want me to come back in, Chair? Yeah. So just I suppose these are the larger arts and cultural organisations that would have arts and culture within their constitution. Primarily the organisations, I suppose, that are funded in our cultural venues fund. That's the purpose of this programme, to make those venues. It's really focused at those, and that's not to take away from, I think, the point that Alderman Hussey is making, that there are many organisations that are the lifeblood, I suppose, of the cultural community right across the city and district, and we know culture has many forms, but for this programme it is primarily focused on arts and culture and those that are constituted as such.
Thanks, Aidan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Doyle, I'm looking for a proposer here. The first two speakers didn't or couldn't propose the item. So Emmett?
I'm happy to propose, Chair. I won't use some of the language from Derek, but I know where he's coming from. So I know, Aidan, that those eligible for this are from the Cultural Orgs Fund, the Headline Events Fund, and our service level agreements. I'm just wondering, from a perspective of COVID, for example, when we're talking about the Headline Events Fund and the people and the organisations that are eligible for that, you know, when we're talking about the support going forward, obviously we're still in the restrictions at the moment. And I know that there are other programs that we'll get to that discuss funding for the Headline Events Fund. But in terms of those organisations with the service level agreements, those in particular, how is this programme aimed at them? I suppose the reason why I'm asking is, obviously, if we have service level agreements with them, that normally includes some sort of a financial support, regardless of what's going on at the moment. So I'm wondering why specifically the SLAs are included just in the eligibility. Thanks very much.
Well, as you know, we only have two cultural organisations that receive service level agreements from us, and that's the Millennium Forum and the Northwest Carnival Initiative. And I suppose this is the title of this program is Collaborative Resilience. So the whole purpose of this program, I suppose, is to try and determine where there are collaborative opportunities, and it would be remiss of us not to have the Millennium Forum and the Northwest Carnival Initiative involved in this program. It's not primarily, it's about very strategic, specific interventions as opposed to, maybe a mainstream revenue funding organisation. It's designed to look at the organisation, the resilience of all of the organisations, but it's designed to look at them collaboratively. So it is important that our own organisations, or I suppose those that have service level agreements with us. I mean, we will be participating as for example, as the Alley Theatre within the programme, but it's unlikely that we would be getting financial support for example, for an intervention as such. So, whether it's not determined in this whether those organisations will actually receive financial support, but the whole idea is about collaborative resilience. So it is important that all of the organisations of that type are included.
Thanks for that, Aileen. Emmett, does that answer your question?
Yep, thanks, Chair.
All right, cheers. Councillor Durgan, Mary?
Okay, Chair, I'll be brief. I'm happy to second if we still need a seconder. And just want to thank Aileen and the officers. I think we all know the value of our arts and culture sector here in Derry. We all know the need for regional balance here too, the need to protect the sector, to support these organisations, to support the artists. So yeah, this is a very welcome collaborative approach, and thank all those who've been working hard and maintaining the momentum too, because we've had the engagement meetings and we're getting these regular reports too. So thank you, Aileen. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary. Councillor Raymond Barr has indicated that he's here, so if his attendance could be recorded. Councillor Mellon, Aileen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And Councillor Durkin has already seconded the proposal. Was a proposal made yet? It was just in terms they lend our voice to it as well in support of the recommendations. And it is nice to see, although it's a strategic view, it's how we build resilience through the full sector. And in terms of the capacity building, there's no time like the present on how we have to support and how we can build together. And even ones that are outside of that, there's models there within the resiliency programs that can be rolled down throughout it. So it's very welcome to see, and thank you, Aileen, for the report.
Here's Aileen. So next item on the agenda is number 8, and that's the Access and Inclusion Programme update. And again, that is Aileen.
So thank you, Chair. Members, the purpose of this report is to update you on the status of the Department for Community's letter of offer relating to council-led access projects, and to seek your approval for the Access and Inclusion Coordinator role to be mainstreamed within Council. At this committee in February, members approved the acceptance of the letter of offer from the Department for Communities, and it was detailed in the report. Given the short time available in the procurement challenges faced by a number of the project, council officers sought an extension to the letter of offer from the department. Unfortunately, it was not possible, and despite our best efforts and the best efforts of our colleagues in the department, it wasn't possible to extend the letter of offer. However, officials within the department have indicated that there will be an opportunity to resubmit to their access programme, which is just about to open their funding programme. So to resubmit the projects that were not initiated in the 2021 financial year. So of the projects detailed in the previous report, the following, due to the deliverability challenges, will now not be able to proceed under, I suppose, what is now last year's letter of offer. And the proposal is that we would resubmit them immediately to this year's access fund. So they include, they're listed there in the report, they include inclusive park seating, the Alley Theatre, Strathfoyle Play Park, Castledare Changing Places, the Next Stage mobile outdoor shelters in Columns Park, Wall Garden. DFC have issued a revised letter of offer to reflect the value of those remaining projects that have made sufficient progress to meet their deadline. So they've adjusted the letter of offer that they had previously issued, and the projects that can go ahead under last year's are the Tower Museum project, the Guildhall Portable Accessible Staging, and the regional project, the Toolkit, which is the Toolkit for Accessibility Audits. It is the intention of council officers to resubmit the projects detailed above under this year's call, so that is the 21-22 in-year call, in addition to the external projects identified through Council's own access programme grant aid call. In the interim, officers would like to proceed with the accessible outdoor hub project at the Alley Theatre, utilising previously held external funding from the PHA. The original project for which the PHA funding had been earmarked no longer requires support for this source. The proposed reprofile of this existing letter of offer will require the approval of the PHA. From its inception, the Access and Inclusion Coordinator role has been fully supported by the Public Health Agency, but from year-end 2021, this direct salary support will cease. That was always the indication of the Public Health Agency, and in order to retain this role, it's proposed that Council repurpose a portion of the cultural capital budget to meet the salary requirement. The mainstream role will support the functions of the Business and Culture Directorate. The PHA will continue to fund some programme activity, and the focus on the role will be to secure and manage external funding for the Business and Culture Directorate. And so I suppose so far it should be it's worth pointing out that that role has has exceptionally proved its weight in terms of the amount of external funding for access projects that it has secured, and it is our intention and it's our view that it's value for money that we mainstream this role, particularly within our own directorate, to use it to leverage in additional external funding. So members, you're asked to accept the revised letter of offer from DFC and to approve the reprofile of the existing PHA letter of offer to enable the accessible outdoor hub project at the Alley Theatre to proceed, and for members to approve the proposed mainstreaming of the Access and Inclusion Coordinator role within Council. And members, what I would also propose at this stage to add to the recommendations is that you allow us to accept immediately any letter of offer that we would receive for the 21-22 Access Fund, so that we don't need to come back for approval, that we take that you allow us to grant approval to accept the letter of offer with the view that we would bring back a report for information to this committee on the projects as soon as funding has been secured to allow them to proceed.
Thanks for that, Aideen. Just before opening up the floor, and I see we've got a couple of indicated speakers in Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Mellon. We have lost out on £165,000 worth of projects. I'm unsure of the reasons behind each of them. Would you be able to tell us why each of these projects was not able to proceed, and give us some understanding of the conversation with DFC? Because my view is that they're saying, oh, we can apply for this in 21-22. We would have other projects that we wanted to put in for 21-22, and now the ones that should have been on this year are going to next year. So in my view, that's a loss to the council. So could you give us a flavour of why each of the projects that we thought we were going to get funded for aren't going to be funded? And in terms of mainstreaming the role, can you confirm that there's not going to be a rates impact over that?
Yeah, so so first of all, we're, I suppose, between ourselves and we've been working very closely with our colleagues in the Department for Communities around this programme over the last year in particular. It's a particularly challenging environment for everybody. I've been particularly close, for example, to it's particularly challenging in terms of the procurement and the wider environment in terms of being able to it has been over the last year in terms of our ability to deliver projects. And I suppose the key thing is around getting what the department want is for us to have the procurement initiated really, and to have the bulk of that secured to allow the project to go through. That is one of the requirements that any project needs. We have all, I suppose, probably tried to put our best foot forward collectively to try and get as many projects into the starting blocks as we can, in the hope that we'll get them funded. I think DFC are, certainly the folks that we're working with at an officer level certainly are doing their very best to get to make as much funding available as possible, and to get the programme reopened as quickly as possible. But I mean, for example, one of the projects there is the Alley Theatre, developing an outdoor accessible hub for accessible programming. That we have had to go out numerous times. We started the procurement process last October, I think, for that project alone. And there just hasn't been the response. It's partly because it's quite a specialist piece of equipment that is required for that. So a lot of the companies are, just not as agile as they would have been. Many of them have staff furloughed, and it's just not, the procurement environment is just not as it would normally be. That's really due to the pandemic. And I'm sure if our colleagues from Capital Development were here, they would talk about the challenges that they're facing right across projects. I know the detail of that one in particular because I suppose it's our own project in one of our own facilities. But we've had to go out, a couple of times to try and get responses for that. So we're just not able to get it across the line. And I think we were all keen that we would push as hard as we could collectively to try and get these projects delivered. But there are real challenges, and we're heartened by the response that we're getting from our colleagues in the department that they will accept those coming in as soon as they get this opened, which should be in a matter of weeks, and that these projects are ready to go. So we haven't stopped the work on them. I suppose we'll be ready to hopefully accept a letter of offer, and the application work is effectively done once we get the procurement through. As regards the access and inclusion coordinator post, we are proposing that we realign what has been capital match funding, I suppose, for the access programme, and that we put that into salary. That post has proved, it's proved its worth in terms of the external funding that it's brought in. So we have that money. We're just proposing to move it from a capital pot that we have into to fund a salary, on the basis that the focus of the role is to apply for external funding and to deliver externally funded projects. So there won't be, to answer your question, there won't be an additional rates ask. We're just proposing to reprofile a portion of a capital budget with a view to it working to bring in more external funding.
Yeah. All right. Cheers. Thanks for that, Aideen. So first indicated speaker is Councillor Ferguson. Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Aideen, for this. Now, I kind of feel like this should have been two reports, because on one hand, the Access and Inclusion Coordinator role is a fantastic role which has done amazing stuff, and it should be celebrated, and it's been brought into council mainstream. It's fantastic news, that they've done amazing stuff and identifying projects. On the other hand, it's really disappointing that the letter of offer, we haven't got through that procurement stage, and I have a few questions around that. And specifically, I know the likes of the Strabane Play Park was a huge campaign from the young ones around here, and they were told in November that this was successful. So was it a procurement issue because of COVID that it didn't get cross the line before March? And if it was that taken in consideration by the department? Because it is, it's really for all the projects, the inclusive park seating across the whole, rural and urban settings throughout the council would be amazing stuff. And it, like Rory said, it's nice set us back. We had projects that we wanted to continue on with this year, and they're now being set back possibly to next year because this one has been put to 21, 22, and 23. So where I'm happy enough to propose the recommendations, because you want to have your proposal that we give you access to go in free rein and put these through again for 2021, 2022, and then come back with a report. That's absolutely fine. I can't not say that it's extremely disappointing on one hand, but also welcome the news about the inclusion officer. So just wanted to check, is it COVID? And if it is, was that taken into consideration by the department? Thank you.
Aideen.
Yeah, well, I suppose largely a lot of the problems were COVID, but reflective of the wider environment. And I think the department, as far from our discussions with them, they did take that into account. But I suppose they're constrained to a certain degree in how their funds are allocated and how they get them out the door, and particularly for external funded projects like this. So I suppose it's COVID related, but probably in the realm of the fallout rather than in the direct emergency of COVID, if that makes sense.
Could I just quickly, Rory? Sorry.
Yeah, fine, Rachel. Yeah.
Aileen, was there enough time for the likes of the Strathfoy Play Park to get across the line by March, or was it set, was it from the start never going to happen? That's what I'm kind of wondering. Was it too short of a deadline for the procurement to actually go ahead?
I'm not over the detail of the ins and outs of the procurement of Strathfoy Play Park. Is probably why I spoke a wee bit more about the Alley Theatre one. That like the Alley Theatre one, for example, that's a particular piece of kit. When we struggled to find suppliers of it. And we certainly struggled to find suppliers of it that were responding to us, and then suppliers that were able to respond and submit quotations. So I'm happy to talk to my colleagues and get some more detail for you, Councillor Ferguson, around the Strathfoy Play Park. But I suspect from the general conversations that we've had is that they probably face similar issues. And I think probably like everything else, we all took a decision that, look, we need to have a go at this, because if we don't have a go, we'll all go home and do nothing. So we probably hoped that we would get the response. So I suppose it was difficult to say at the stage where we were applying, and probably between ourselves and the department, it was very difficult for anybody to make a judgment over whether we would get the responses. But nobody was willing to say, look, we won't try, if that makes sense.
Is that okay, Rachel? Rachel's put a note in the chat box, Aileen, if you want to have a wee look at it.
Yeah, I will do that, definitely.
All right, cheers. So Councillor Mellon, Aileen?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Thanks again to Aileen for the report. It is unfortunate that there is programmes that didn't go ahead, and as you say, it's not within the gift of the department to progress on the 2021 funding and the 21-22. But it is heartening to know that there is a co-workingship there, that they are willing to put this through for 21-22. So hopefully, on the bright side, that this can still go ahead, and it is a matter of procedure, so that you can press ahead with a letter of offer. Just one question in terms of transferring the Access and Inclusion Officer over. What, if any, impact would that have on the capital grant money, the budget on them? And although I do agree that it should stay, because as you said, it brings in a lot of investment itself, and we can't be penny wise and pound foolish. So I am happy to second all the recommendations that are there, but it was just in terms of the current budget for that, how much that would implicate, or how much it would impact.
Aileen, do you want to go on to somebody's salary here on a live broadcast?
No,
Well,
sorry, just not sorry. Maybe
I think probably more
in terms of the monetary kind of issues of it, but will it have a big impact on it, or will its investment into it rather than lose it? That's kind of what I meant, not the actual figure. Sorry.
We have a pot of money that we use for cultural capital that has supported the Access programme, but we've always matched it with external funding, and the officer has always been instrumental in securing external funding to match that capital pot. So it's not going to have a big impact on it, no. And in our assessment, it makes exceptional value for money, particularly when you consider the amount of money that post has brought in over the last number of years. We think it's it's a sensible decision to take a portion. It's not the full capital budget, to take a portion of that and invest it in a salary with a view to that salary working to secure additional external funding. And certainly it's proved its worth over the last few years. So we're confident that if we make the same investment, we'll see the return.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, fire away.
Just in terms of the previous project that the PHA money was for, just out of curiosity, I was just looking to know what that was initially planned for, why it's not going ahead.
You mean the PHA, the role that was funded, the access and inclusion role that was funded from the PHA?
No, sorry, Aidan, just for recommendation 5.2 for the previous money that was for a previous project funded by PHA that's no longer going ahead, that you'll be using for the outdoor hub, the accessible outdoor hub. What was there a reason that one didn't go ahead, and that's why that money was freed up?
I can't remember. I need to check that. What I know the answer, but I can't think off the top of my head what that there was underspend in that wider PHA project, and it's our and that's why we're proposing to reallocate it to the Alley Theatre project. But I'll double check in the original letter of offer. There was a number of there was a number of things that would have been reworked in that project, but I'll double check specifically what it was that has allowed us to reallocate it and get to that detail.
Yeah, and I would just finally, Chair, sorry, just like to make the point that I credit to the council officers who are continuing to press this forward and move along and do the next financial year and not give up. To particularly the young people who Councillor Ferguson was on about, that has campaigned, who we've seen in council to bring these programmes to fruition. So just credit the councillors for continuing to work alongside DFC and for their invaluable kind of help that they're bringing to it as well, that they're willing to bring it forward.
Thanks, Aileen, for those 3 questions. I think so. Here, my view on this is that in terms of mainstreaming the access and inclusion officer's role, instead of spending the money in capital, it's going to be spent in wages. And the whole point of that is to lever in more capital, which is going to be a net benefit to this council. That's the whole point on it. In terms of, right, so the projects, that didn't get funded this year, is there any degree of confidence that they're going to be ready for next year? Or could we be facing this Groundhog Day? Aileen?
Well, I suppose we've not stopped the work on them, so they're at the they're almost ready to go. So I don't have a crystal ball, and I suppose none of us in the last couple of years would have got into the business of saying for certain what we will and won't be doing over the next few months. But we're pretty confident that these projects are well advanced, and DFC are confident that they're well advanced. So we'll be, we don't stop scoping out projects, I suppose, just because, so we're always ready, and we're hoping that these projects will get through in this round, and, we'll always have more projects coming up behind to put in for application. So I think we're very hopeful, and we'll do our best.
Thank you, Aileen. So the next indicated speaker is Alderman Hussey. Derek?
Thank you, Chair, for permission. Thank you, Aidan. Well advanced, but not well enough advanced, because I look and find it again here on 3.2. The remaining projects made progress. That's fair enough. But the previous ones, like yourself, Chair, I share your frustration at the fact that said here, due to their deliverability challenges. And I'm wondering, where does the buck stop here? Why is that? Because these are projects that we have seen through various committees and council being touted as being there. We have them. And I particularly look, Councillor Ferguson has referred to her own area and a particular project there, but I look at the Castlederg Changing Places one. Additional contribution to meet the challenging place standard for this project. Additional. So this is a project that is ongoing. It's already there. It's starting. So, where is this issue of sufficient progress? So, I'm wondering to myself, where does the buck stop on this? Somebody, whether it's in the department, And when I say that, I mean the central government department, or it's within our own remit. I just don't know, but I am concerned about it. That, you know, these are projects, as I say, we've seen them in our various committees, and all of a sudden we're told, you know, these were shovel-ready projects. But what has happened? And I suspect, you know, it may be within the Stormont department that these issues have arisen, you know, and we're having to carry the can for that. You know, promises have been made to our electors on the back of promised projects, and you know, we're now being knocked back on them, and it's extremely disappointing. And finally, Chair, can I agree with Councillor Ferguson on the fact there are two issues here: the appointment of an officer, taking that forward. Should have been two separate issues, but I'm not a member of committee, so that's neither here nor there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Derek. And final indicated speaker is Alderman Kerrigan. Welcome to Business and Culture. Keith, would you like to say
Thank
something?
you, Chair. I do usually listen in, Chair. I usually just sit quietly and let you tear away there and just have you on in the background. But today you might hear a few budgies in the background. But to be fair, I am. Thank you for letting me in. As I say, I'm not a member, but I do. I'm touching on the same point there, Aideen, that Alderman Husky has raised there in relation to the Castle Derry changing places there. One, is that something, but I say maybe it's something I should contact you direct just in relation to an email about it, for it's just a case of, you know, that's, as Alderman Husky said, that's additional money towards that, and that project, as far as we were concerned, was moving. So again, is this something that particular facility now won't be provided, or what's sort of the situation? And again, will that be pushed forward now, seeing as the rest of that project is a go, as far as we're seeing, and there's, you know, there's ones on the ground working on it, that will be put in as a priority now in the next funding year, or what's the situation there with it? So it's just a wee bit of clarity, but maybe that's something I should just correspond direct with you, Aideen, in regards.
I'm happy to come in there. I mean, all of these projects are going in as a priority now, and you're quite right in pointing out that the change in place facility in Castle Derry is an advanced project, and it's a balance of that project that is required. So it is going in as a priority, absolutely, without a doubt.
Thank you, Aideen, and thank you, Keith, for that. So that was proposed by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Mellon, and there was no dissenting voices. So the next item on the agenda is agenda item 9, and that's the Forehand Valley Woodland Sculpture. And again, we've got Aideen to present that paper. Aideen.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, this report is to update you on the proposed Forehand Valley Woodland Sculpture Spectacular project, another tongue twister, which is being delivered by the Woodland Trust, and to seek your consent for Council to be the co-applicant for the project. You'll know the Woodland Trust is the UK's largest woodland conservation charity, and in 2019 they commissioned an access and interpretation strategy which recommended the development of the Forehand Valley as a woodland hub. It's an extensive project that I think members will have been reasonably familiar with, but it includes an iconic sculpture trail comprising multiple small and medium and large sculptures and multi-use trails network, a bridge to cross the River Forehand, and a visitor car park in Redbury Woods. The Woodland Trust has successfully secured funds from the National Heritage Lottery Fund and are preparing an application to the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs Rural Tourism Scheme. They have requested Council be the co-applicant, as the scheme is only open to projects in which Council are at least the co-applicant. This application would be subject to a partnership agreement where the Woodland Trust would agree to the terms of the RDP grant and to bear the risk associated with the project. The total value of the project is set out in the report. The total value is 1.6. The Woodland Trust is requesting 477,000. As co-applicant, council would be expected to provide 5% match funding to the project. However, there are no DCSDC budgets available to approve this, and in order to secure the grant is secured, the Woodland Trust, as the key project partner, have confirmed that they are willing to provide the 5% match funding requirement the council would usually be expected to pay. There are no additional funds therefore required from council, and members, you're asked to note the contents of the report and to approve council to be the co-applicant with the Woodland Trust on the Forehand Valley Woodlands Rural Development Project application, subject to a partnership agreement.
Thanks for that, Aileen. I think that's brilliant news. It's £1.6 million worth of investment that's coming into our council area, and we don't have to pay anything. So our thanks should go to the Woodland Trust who have guaranteed that 5%. And I think if we've noticed anything over the last year with the advance of COVID, that everybody spends their spare time out walking and the parks and wooded areas across our council area. So I think I've visited every one bar the Red Brae Woods. So that's on my list for exploration. So the first indicated speaker is Alderman Guy. Darren.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Happy to propose this. Great news, as you say there, Chair. But could I just ask a question, just for clarity? Red Brae Woods, am I right in saying that this is there's an entrance there, a laneway from opposite the Red Row in Drumahoe, which takes you down to this area, can also be accessed from the Bleach Green side at Ardmore. Is it that bridge that's being replaced that I know had come into a bad state of repair over the years? And that's basically, I know there was ownership issues with that laneway in the past. Will there be two entrances, or will it be just at that car park that they're talking about? Thank you, Chair.
Here's Darren. Aileen.
I am not sure about the answer to that, Alderman Guy, but I'm happy to arrange for a full update from the Woodland Trust on the details of the project.
I think it might be is it Muff Glen you're on about, Darren? I know that there was a bridge issue there. No, I'm wrong. I shouldn't be speaking about issues in Faughan. So next indicated speaker is Alderman Wark. Graham.
Thank you, Chair. I see Darren Guy proposed that. I'm happy enough to second it, Chair, and it's obviously massive. You hear a massive potential for the future. Only last night I was doing the steps around the beautiful Ness Woods there, and like only 6 miles, 7 miles out of the city, there's so many hidden gems there, and it's so important to more or less obviously to maintain these ancient woodlands about these areas. And walking around the Ness, you see all these carved the wee animals and stuff, and so educational for young people, but so much potential coming on there. I'm not too sure if it's that one you're on about, Darren. I think it would be further on out the road. And with this here, with the Woodland Trust, you have to welcome the hard work and behind the scenes here, but it's so much potential for everybody in the district to go and visit these beautiful areas. I know the Ness Woods, a lot of people years ago never seen it, and I think the majority of the district and further afield come and see it, and it's absolute hidden gems. And I'm sure these woods in question here are also the same, but happy enough to second that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Wark. Councillor Cusack. Shauna.
Thank you, Chair, and just on behalf of the SDLP, want to show our appreciation to the Woodland Trust. It's not very often you get something for nothing, and something to this level is really, really something to be celebrated. We're huge advocates for the improvement and the support that goes out there from all organisations, for whether it be voluntary, statutory organisations which support and encourage participation in our green and natural areas, which teaches, as Graham said there, you're teaching children respect for nature, and that's got a profound effect on how they grow up and how they will look at our environment and respect our environment going forward. So wonderful news, delighted to hear it, and look forward to seeing the project go forward. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Shauna. So that item is approved with proposed by Alderman Guy, seconded by Alderman Wark. Next item on the agenda is agenda item 10, and that's the Columkill 1500 update. And again, we've got Aideen to present that paper. Aideen.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, the purpose of this report is to provide you an update on the Columkill 1500 programme currently being delivered by Derry City and Strabane District Council and our colleagues in Donegal County Council and supported by the North West Development Fund. Columkill 1500 is a year-long commemoration marking the 1500th anniversary of the birth of Columkill, also known as Columba. The year recognises the importance and legacy of the 6th century saint, not only for this part of the world, but also for the island of Ireland, Scotland, and across the world. The year-long celebrations will last from the 7th of December 20 to the 7th of December 21. Our respective councils are coordinate a programme for the year, which is primarily funded through the North West Development Programme. Members will be aware that's in conjunction with and supported by the Executive Office and the Irish Government. The programme builds on an audit of Columban heritage, which was undertaken by both councils in 2018 and aims to raise knowledge and understanding of Columkill, as well as establish a lasting legacy. The programme for the year includes a range of projects, events and activities, and including a community grant scheme. It's been coordinated by a dedicated project manager who, following a recruitment process across both councils, took up post in December, formally as a secondment from Derry City and Strabane District Council to Donegal County Council. The initial phase of the programme since the appointment of the project management has been on mapping planned events and activities, engagement with the stakeholders, the development of online platforms, and rolling out the community grant schemes, which the community grant scheme, which opened on 27th of January, had 71 applications were received before the deadline of the 19th of February, and this included 48 from Donegal and 23 from this council area. The breakdown is outlined in the report. There's currently a grants budget of £16,000, which is sufficient to fund 4 in each area up to a value of £1,800. In Donegal, additional number will be supported by Creative Ireland funding and by Údarás na Gaeltachta. A reserve list is in place if additional funding becomes available. The mapping exercise has identified approximately 45 planned events or activities to date relating to Columkill 1500, mostly at a local and regional level, but also virtual events taking place at a national and international level. There are a list of activities being coordinated specifically by the two councils are outlined in Appendix 1 of this report, and engagement is also underway with stakeholders at a national and international level, for example, national institutions with Columkill artefacts, and to develop links in Scotland and Nova Scotia. A website was commissioned by this council and is now live with the link in the report. Its purpose is to provide a central platform to collectively promote activities. The COVID pandemic has provided unique challenges for commemorating Columkill this year, but there is an opportunity to bring our celebrations to an international audience through virtual events promoted through the website. The website includes a number of confirmed events, and others will be added from the mapping as the dates and activities have been confirmed over the rest of the year. There's also a function on the website to allow groups and organisations to submit their own event to ensure it's as inclusive as possible. There's also social media accounts that have been set up and have now become active now that the website is launched. The Columkill 1500 programme, as I've said, is funded by the North West Development Fund. The total funding covers staffing, operating and programming costs. Additional events and activities relating to Columkill 1500 have been funded through other sources such as the Arts Council, the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaelic Sport and Media for projects being led by Donegal County Council. Should additional funding be available from savings within this council's business and culture budgets or from the wider project, it's proposed to fund additional events from the reserve granted applications in the Derry Strabane council area. Members are asked to note the content of the report and to approve the allocation of additional funding to the reserve applicants from the granted applications.
Thanks for that, Aideen. I think Columkill, or the variants of his name, are synonymous with this city. We've got St Colum's College, St Colum's Cathedral, St Colum's Park. That list is endless. You've got my own party leader, Colum Eastwood, so I think he's probably named after Columba as well. So I think we've got an exciting programme of events, and I've had a look at the website, and it's very professional, and it tells the story of Columba. And that's an opportunity to promote this story on a global stage. So the first indicated speaker is Councillor Logue. Patricia.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Aidan, for the report. Certainly welcome, and if there needs to be proposed, I think it does need proposal, I'll propose. It's great to see that the project officer is now in place, and you know, it goes without saying the importance of this not centenary, I don't know what 1500 years of for the city and wider afield. But it is, I suppose, a wee bit concerning to see about the many groups that have applied for funding, and I would certainly be proposing that, indeed, as mentioned on the report, that if there is any extra money, that it does be prioritised for events that have been applied for, given the nature of the whole project. But hopefully we'll be able to go and see some of the things, that it won't all be virtual. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Next indicated speaker is Councillor Doyle. Emmett.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Aidan. I suppose it's the same really with all of these things, but I know that everything is planned right throughout the year to be on a digital platform. But if we do get the opportunity for some of our cultural centres to be open at some point in the year, is there scope there for those to I suppose be held in person, so people can visit them? The other thing that I'm kind of noticing, and I've mentioned this a couple of times around themes, is that there doesn't seem to be a lot of public marketing in terms of you know, I know there's a website, but in terms of actual physical marketing in the city, you know, it's obviously a very, very important anniversary. It's also something that, like Rory said, is synonymous with the city. And I think it would do no harm if we do get things lifted, even in the next couple of months, that we promote this as something that's very much in the fabric of the city. Especially, I know international partners were mentioned. Obviously, we don't know where travel is going to go, but it would be important, I think, to inform the executive office in America and China as well, if so that if we are able to open up and people are able to travel, that we can take full advantage of it, given that we've been hammered from the start of the year. Thank you.
Did you second that?
I will.
Okay, thank you. Next indicated speaker is Alderman Hussey. Derek.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Aidan. And thank you for your clarification at the beginning, because you've answered my question. Colin Kill, I wasn't sure, but you've clarified that is who I would know as St. Columba, and that's clarified, and I welcome that. I notice of all the events within the project themes that there are only 5 which are within the spirituality concept. And I'm thinking to myself, we're talking about a religious person here. And I'm mindful of the 3 saints in Ireland, namely St. Columba, St. Patrick, and St. Bridget. And you know, what effort has been made for liaison with the various churches as to a person who is a very important personality within the Christian faith throughout the Ireland, throughout the island, you know. So I'm wondering, you know, sometimes we almost brush aside the centrality of the particular individual, and the centrality of St. Columba, as with the other saints, is within a religious context. So why have we broadened out the way it has been, and you know, what liaison has there been with the various churches in regard to this? Thank you, Chair.
Aileen.
Yeah, I'm happy to come back on that. So the one thing the report doesn't mention is that there, but I suppose it would have been detailed in reports to the Northwest group, is that there is a fairly broad steering committee that in the run up to the project was led on as an initiative by the Churches Trust. That is now migrated into a steering committee for this project that is coordinated by the project coordinator, and the Churches Trust, as I say, led on that previously, but all of the main churches across the Northwest are involved in that, or the majority of the main Christian churches certainly across the Northwest are involved in that steering committee, and they all have extensive programs to commemorate the 1500th anniversary of the birth of Columcille or Columba. And part of that is the coordination of that activity. And I suppose part of the role of the project officer in this and the role of this project was to coordinate activity among partners, so that all of the activity was not to be from this, funded by this project itself, but it's a coordination role. But certainly all of the majority of the Christian churches are involved in the project.
Thanks for that, Aileen. So that item was proposed by Councillor Logue and seconded by Councillor Doyle, and I'm reliably informed via Wikipedia that the 1500th anniversary is a sesquimillennial anniversary, so just remember that for future reference.
Chair, sorry, I was on there as well, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Graham.
I would like to welcome the report here today, and obviously a big event, and it's not the only big event we have happening too. It's obviously the 100th year of the centenary. We had to get that on there as well, so it's going to be a big 12 months ahead, so it is, but I'd like to welcome that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Graham. So next item on the agenda is agenda item 11, and that's the cultural grant aid results for 2021, and to present that again we have Aileen. Aileen?
So thank you, Chair. So members, the purpose of this report is to approve your allocation, is to secure your approval for the allocation of funding for the cultural grant aid programs, including cultural organisations, heritage animation, the Access Programme for Cultural Organisations, headline events, community festivals, Artisan Cultural Practitioner Award, and the Decade Centenaries Fund 21 and 22. You will recall previous reports to this committee secured the rollout of these grant aid programmes. Cultural organisations fund sought applications from those engaged in arts and culture, museum and heritage activity. It's designed to support the professional and high capacity organisations within the arts and culture sector. Heritage Animation Programme is focused on the delivery of animation and visitor servicing. It was originally established to develop the visitor experience among the heritage venues. Access Programme focused on cultural organisations supporting capital improvements directly related to the findings within the independent access audit. Headline Events is for suitable strategic cultural and sporting events of significant scale. Community Festivals is a two-tiered programme enabling communities to deliver events and activities at local level. Artisan Practitioner Fund was created to fulfil a specific action under the Arts and Culture Strategy, and which states the requirement to create a dedicated fund in this council area to support independent artists, theatre makers and arts organisations in the creation and dissemination of new artistic work, commission quality local and international artists to create artworks linked to learning opportunities for programmes and events within the aim of inspiring audiences and practitioners. The Decade Centenaries Fund, you'll know, was open to local groups to apply for grant support for projects and events to commemorate the centenary of the establishment of Northern Ireland. Council motion was passed in July 2015 to mark the Decade Centenaries, and a working group established. The key role of the working group is to lead on the development of Council Decade Centenaries programme. Events and initiatives delivered by groups must remember in context, remember the whole decade, remember the future, remember ethically, and remember together. So I will try and summarise as best I can. This is a detailed report, but I'll try and pull out the key issues in relation to each fund. 17 applications were received for the Cultural Organisations Fund. They had to meet a minimum threshold of 50%. This year, the 21-22 award will be the first in a 3-year award cycle. So this is the first, as members will recall, this is has always been our intention to get to a 3-year cycle. It's been the request of the sector, and it's generally been the direction of travel. So this year is the first in a 3-year cycle. Of the 17 eligible applications, 2 were from the museum and heritage sector and 15 from the arts and culture sector. The successful applicants are outlined in Appendix 1 of the report. The total value of the applications was 195,303 against an available grant aid budget of 192. So at present, this means that one organisation will not receive any support and another will receive a reduction in eligible support. What I would say, so members, you'll see in the recommendations that given the small amount that we would recommend, if we can find savings, we would extend that to the full 195,000, but that will be subject to your approval and I suppose the approval, and to allow us to have that conversation with the head of finance. The total value of funding contributions for heritage organisations sought from the tourism and development budget is £13,405 against a total available grant aid budget of £83,600. The remaining balance of that, of the tourism development budget, was allocated to the Heritage and Animation Fund. So the total budget was for heritage animation was 83,600 minus the amount that has been allocated to heritage venues through the cultural organisations. So members will be aware, and those who are familiar with these funds, that some of those organisations, particularly the museums, are able to straddle both funds, but there's none of them. You can't get more than the maximum value across. So you can't get more than 17,000 across any number of those funds. In 21-22, a total of 5 applications were received, and the total funds that have been allocated are 65,340. A summary of the applications for this fund is outlined in Appendix 2. The remaining budget will be used to further support the capacity of the wider heritage venues. The total value of eligible applications for capital-based access was 213,492,000 from 8 venues. Again, the results are outlined in Appendix 3. To the headline events fund, the total was application was 223,620. These were all arts and culture events. There were no sporting applications this year. There were 12 applications. With the existing budgets of 205,000, 11 of the 12 applicants will receive funding. And again, the details are outlined in Appendix 4. Community Festival Fund. There were 11, total value is 141,819. There were 11 applications to the upper fund with 10 meeting the threshold and 9 applications to the lower fund with 7 meeting the threshold. So with the existing council budgets of 86,000, 6 applications would receive funding on the upper level and 7 at the lower level. And again, a summary is outlined in Appendix 5. And members, I need to draw your attention to the fact that in the appendix for the upper level applications, there is a column missing on the right hand side, and after this meeting I will circulate a revised copy of this spreadsheet. So if you're able to turn to it, what is missing is the amount that is being awarded from council budgets. So between the amount applied for and the DFC columns in that, there should be an additional column that says DCSDC. And those amounts are, the amount awarded for event A is 9,940, for event B is 10,000, for event C is 10,000, for event D is 10,000, for event E is 9,985, and for event F is 3,095 and 30 pence from council budget. Then you then move to the column from DFC. So if we get, as outlined in the report, members, you'll recall that in previous years, the Department for Communities have topped up the council pot. They didn't give us any funding last year, so they didn't give us any funding for 2021. So the last year we would have received funding for this was in 1920, when we got around 30,000. So we make provision, if that money comes through, that you'll see there in the DFC, the next events on the list will get funded. So event F will get their balance to bring them up to 9,950 from DFC, and then events, if we get DFC funding, events G, H and I will receive funding. So apologies for that, but just to give a bit of clarity for anybody who was studying their tables and noticed that error. The Artisan Practitioner Fund had 24 applications to up to 24,000 members. You previously approved an allocation of 16,000. So on the basis of this, an award will be made to the top 16 applicants. And again, the results are outlined in Appendix 6. So for the Decadus Centenaries Fund, there were 16 applications. Based on the allocated score, the available fund of 20,000 will allow 10 eligible applications to be supported in full, with Project K receiving a partial award of 1,000. Project L received the same score as Project K. However, Project L was one of 2 applications submitted by the same organisation. The other application from this organisation, Project I, scored higher and is recommended for support. A list of all the applications and associated scores is detailed in Appendix 7. Now, members, you should note that a wider report on the centenary work will be brought to a future meeting of this committee following a further meeting of the Decadus Centenaries Working Group. But you're asked at this stage to approve the application of this grant aid to allow for letters of offer to be issued to the relevant groups in line with the other funds. So that's why this, as you'll know, the approval of the Decadus Centenaries didn't come in with these other culture reports, but we're asking you to allow us to approve the allocation in this report to allow us to get those letters of offer out to those groups to allow them to proceed with their planning. The proposed cultural grant aid programmes will be drawn from member approved rates-based budget across the culture department. And council officers again will seek external financial resources for the Community Festival Fund and the Access Programme as outlined above. Your recommendations are to approve the proposed award outlined in this report for cultural organisations and an increase from 192 to 195,303 if this increase can be accommodated and subject to discussions with the head of finance. To approve, because that would be a change that needs to be implemented for the next 3 years, obviously with that being a 3-year programme. To approve the award application for heritage animation, for the Access Programme, for headline events, for community festivals, and to approve the allocation for the Artisan and Practitioner Fund, including an increase from 16 to 24 should money become available, and to approve the proposed award allocation for the Decadus Centenaries Fund.
Thank you, Aileen, for that. Well, I got my calculator out and it looks like it's over £750,000, which is a substantial figure. And I think it demonstrates our council's support for the arts, culture and heritage sector across our city and district. Obviously, COVID has had a massive impact on that sector, and our cultural grant aid award of this magnitude demonstrates the importance we place in that sector. It protects jobs and it promotes the arts. So that's a really good news story. One question, Aileen, in terms of the community festivals budget, I know that DFC didn't provide any funding last year. What conversations have we had with them? Are we any clearer on whether or not they will fund this year? Thank you.
No, we don't know yet, and typically it would be into the year. So even in the years that we would have got funding, it would have been maybe in the first or second, in the second quarter at least, before we would have had confirmation of that. So we are writing to them, and we will let you know what the response is.
Thank you, Aileen. So the first indicated speaker is Councillor Logue. Patricia.
Thank you, Aileen, and thank you, Rory. And I just want to comment, you've been very studious today between Wikipedia and calculators. You're I don't know, you're multitasking.
That's the sort of boy I am, Patricia.
Oh, aye. But no, I just want to welcome this report, and it's great to see that so many groups and organisations have applied for all this funding, and I want to thank the officers and all the team for going through all the applications and getting this through. And I would just like to propose that we accept them, and also the proposal, if we can come up to the 95, or the gap between the shortfall, if we can find that is given to those who pass the criteria. Thank you.
Thanks, Tricia, for that. I see Councillor Doyle has indicated in the chat box that he's happy to second. Do you wish to speak on that, Emmett, or are you just happy to let?
Oh, I'm happy to welcome it and happy to second, Chair. Thank you.
All right, cheers for that, Emmett. So Alderman Hussey, Derek.
Thank you, Chair, and your calculation on a calculator is correct. That's by my mental arithmetic. Sorry about that, Chair. Tremendous input to the various sectors throughout the district, and I use that term without the knowledge that it is throughout the district. The anonymity that is expressed in the various columns there, I can understand that within an assessment process, but once we have reached this stage, whereby we're endorsing the assessment, surely to goodness, the anonymity should now at this stage be abandoned. And I trust that when this report goes to council, that the anonymity will be abandoned, and we will know the various organisations and bodies throughout the council area who are receiving this funding. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Eric. So, Aidan, do we have any plans to sort of publicise this?
Yeah, so the information, as you know, I mean, it's not secret. We keep it anonymised at this stage, I suppose, primarily because papers are issued, in advance of this meeting, and it's to allow us then a couple of days, I suppose, to inform the groups and in due course. If there's no reason that, the information isn't a secret, it won't be a secret. We can publish, we can share the information with any elected members, and we can share the information with anybody who wants it once the awards are made. It really is just, I suppose we're in better shape than we would have been in previous years, in that the majority of the applicants are successful. As you know, at previous meetings, we would have this information available and members would be able to see it. It's really to allow us in a, I suppose, as dignified way as possible of letting the groups know. I can certainly circulate this within a number of days to members, and any members who want to see it can see it at the moment. And as you know, we share the information. That's why we have the culture working group. We share it in advance. So if there are any particular concerns, and so members can see that the process is robust as well, we do that. And there's no problem with us in due course publishing the results. There's nothing we're trying to hide. We're just trying to manage how that news gets to the recipients.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable, Aidan. Thanks for that. Derek has indicated in the chat box that he would like to request that info. Derek, I'm sure that you could email Aidan to request that. Alderman Wark, you'd like to comment or ask a question?
Just one thing on this, Chair. Obviously, these all came out, and obviously we knew who they were. Know the people getting this, but could we not put these agendas on the confidential then? Chair, do you get me there?
I can hear you. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, obviously, as I remember, any funding was coming from council. Obviously, the members were aware, and obviously what groups were getting money and what scores. And I'm just thinking, would it be best looking forward now? Obviously, it seems the past while this has all changed now. We're just getting these Annex A, Annex B, Annex Cs. We're not too sure who these people are or what groups. I'm totally welcome whatever groups is getting funding there, but I'm thinking, could we not put these through the confidential then, that members actually are aware? They look into the future in this.
Graham, you're around a lot longer than me, but I remember when we did this in last year, it was anonymised, but that Aidan said if you want detail on who the actual applicants are, that we can.
As I stated on my thing, I'm happy enough with it, and obviously I'm aware the steering group and stuff would have been notified, but I'm just thinking, obviously, through the committee and stuff, though, if we are doing that, would it be best looking forward to go through confidential then on that, so members are aware when we're talking about obviously the funding going out and stuff. But I'm happy enough with the proposing second going through there, but it's just sort of looking at the future. I know this has been raised before. I remember the first time that funding came in, BNC, and there was all the agendas, nobody was aware about it. It was sort of raised quite a bit then. but it's just it was just something that I'd like to see. Obviously, what groups are getting it. To be honest.
Well, Aileen has said if you want to know that she will send it to you. Councillor Doyle is asking, do you want to just ask that yourself, Emmett?
No, it's all right. Aidan got there before me.
Councillor Mellon, Aileen?
Yeah, Chair, sorry, not to lumber on to the item, but it's getting a wee bit uncomfortable in my opinion around if we need to know the names of groups before it can be approved, the recommendation can get approved. Obviously, there is a group of officers who has marked this and it has went through that process, and to put that under confidential shows that it doesn't show that we are. It can give the perception that there is other conversations that would happen, and we obviously wouldn't do that. We trust the process. After this has happened, it would be grand for members to go and see if there is people within their DEA or where it has went within the council and the district. But I think this is the proper procedure in terms of transparency and for everyone to stay accountable. And just for that fluidity of it, I think that's where it should remain, that we shouldn't be going into confidential to discuss certain groups and other groups. I don't think it's very uneasy.
Thanks for that, Aileen. Alderman Guy, you'd like to comment?
Thank you, Chair, or Stato, as you've been called today now. But no, I just want to agree. I'm happy enough to keep the anonymity there. I missed the meeting now, but I would have voted for it as well. I think it's grand. I don't see any complaints with it now. But I'd just like to point out that I think the arts and culture, the 3-year term, I think it's definitely a good idea. As I said, Aidan says there, that's what they've been asking for, and it gives them a bit of peace of mind when moving forward. I'm happy enough with everything else. Obviously, Aidan pointed out to the extra column there earlier, and just that anybody again that doesn't get any funding, obviously the council will point them in the right direction. They signpost them in the areas which they can maybe achieve that funding stream. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Alderman Guy. Councillor Donnelly would like to come on. Gary?
Chair, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
No, Chair, just again, I'm not au fait with this whole process here, but I would like, if this is to be ratified, I'm not a member of this committee, and thanks for letting me in, so I have no vote or proposal here. But if I was to ratify this at full council, surely the groups who we're giving money to we would be aware of them by that stage, would we?
I'm going to ask Aidan or Stephen to come on here just to clarify this, but my understanding is that there's been a process. We've agreed it here. I would imagine the minutes are just ratified at full council. Do you have any plans to do it differently?
I suppose. Oh, sorry. Go.
No, all I was going to say, Chair, is that I mean, as Aidan said, the information is freely available to members, and the point of this is to make sure this is an open business where people can see. I think there would be an issue in terms of whether we could put it into confidential. I don't actually think we could do, because I don't think there's a justification to put it into confidential. The reason for the anonymise, and I think most members are content with that. But to answer Councillor Donnelly's point, I mean, we're happy to make sure that at full council that the non-anonymised list is circulated to members, but you would be approving the minutes of the committee. So you're approving the what has been recommended today, and that's the purpose of what we're bringing through. But by the time we get to full council, we will have already contacted the groups. As Aidan said, it's more the groups that are successful are kind of easily contacted. It's the groups who are unsuccessful, to make sure that information is shared before we would put it in the open domain. But happy to share that so as members know what they're approving or what has been approved, because that's the way it will have worked. So no issue with that.
Okay, that's Aidan, you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think if members were content, probably a good way forward would be maybe if you can, today it's Tuesday, if you can maybe give us till the end of the week to contact the groups provisionally, and by early next week, I will circulate to all members a full copy of all the spreadsheets, so you will have them. You know, you'll all have a full set of them before full council. And by that stage, we'll have told the groups, and before you'll have time then to review all of the results yourselves in the full. And if you have any queries, then you can come back to us directly, and we can work with you before full council. So when it goes to full council, I suppose while we will we can publish the results, but probably our preference would be to allow to say, you know, to go back to Councillor Mellon's point there. We're really asking members to approve the process. So to maintain the integrity of that process, you really probably should do it without knowing, you know, you're not being asked and without it being in the public domain, the recipients. But there's no problem with us telling, you know, within the next few days, the actual recipients, the results. And as Stephen says, the issue really is if the recipients aren't successful, you know, we want to give them a chance to absorb that and look at the implications of it. But I'm happy to get those notes out this week, and at the beginning of next week to circulate a full set of spreadsheets to all the members. If people are happy, if members are happy with that as an approach. But as Stephen says, we probably should still keep it, you know, you're approving the minutes of this at full council, but at full council, you know, I'm happy to say that you'll all have got a copy of them.
Thanks for that, Aidan, and that seems fair enough. And the consensus in the chat box is that people are content with that approach. And Derek, I'm going to let you in one more time, if you can keep it brief, please.
Very quick one. Unsuccessful applicants, do they have a right of appeal? Thank you.
Aidan?
Not until, you know, we'll happily work, but we don't really have an appeals process. I suppose they would go through our complaints process if there was an issue, and we'd happily review any applicant that was unsuccessful. So, and any member, I mean, we would have shared, as members will know in the working group, if any member wants to see an actual application, there is no problem with that as well, but we generally don't circulate those for wider consumption. We would have brought the copies of applications into the member working group for review on occasion, and there's no problem if any elected member needs to see an application. So yes, they can. We don't have an appeals process associated with this as such. It probably would go down our complaints process, but those members who would have worked with us over the last few years around applicants who were unsuccessful, I mean, we're fairly robust and supportive of all of our applicants. You know, we want to see them succeed, and we'll work with anybody, as you know. So that's really how we approach it.
Chair, can I see, there is no appeals process, but there is feedback. I think that's what we've been told. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's always feedback. Yeah. And you know, we give it once the process really is complete. We give extensive feedback, and you know, many members would have worked with us with various groups over the last few years with groups who need extra support and who need feedback. And you know, all of the teams right across the culture department are more than willing to give feedback and support.
Okay, Aidan, thanks for that, and thanks for your efforts over those last 5 papers. They've been pretty stellar. So that was proposed by Councillor Logue, seconded by Councillor Doyle. Next item on the agenda is agenda item 12, and it's the future delivery options for parking services. And to take us through that paper, we've got Kevin O'Connor. Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was thinking maybe Aidan could take us through this paper too. No, only joking. So members, the purpose of this report is to seek your approval to look at future delivery options for the off-street car parking contract. you'll be aware that since taking over the car parking responsibility in 2015, we've worked with DFI on a collaborative agreement and an agency agreement for a 3-year period up to 2019. That was then subsequently extended up to 2022. Basically, it's coming to the point now where the councils who are involved in that agency agreement have been asked to look at what they want to do post 2022 in relation to the management of off-street car parking. So there's currently 9 of the 11 councils who are within that agency agreement with DFI. That contract provision really looks at enforcement, penalty charge notice processing and IT services. I have to say the collaboration and the work that we've done with DFI has worked very, very well over the years, and we've been more than content with the service that we have received in that time. In relation to that, however, councils have agreed and do wish to test the market in terms of trying to understand what the delivery options the contract options would be going forward post 2022. So basically, the recommendation from this report is really around looking at recommended that the council officially informs DFI of its intention to test the market and to seek service delivery options outside the current agency agreement, and it's recommended the councils inform the working group that, as a sitting member of the group, that has the authority to collaboratively engage on our behalf from a legal and contractual perspective. So that's the recommendation. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Kevin. I was going to say we have no indicated speakers, and then Councillor Doyle put his name in the chat box. So Emmett.
That's his fingers first and all that, Chair. Thanks, Kevin, for the report. I was a bit surprised at 3.3 where DFI's indicated it wanted us to enter into a new agreement without having any side of costs. Look, I mean, I recognise this is a fairly complex item, but I suppose my basic question is, when do we have to agree this in terms of a way forward? And has there, what are the implications of bringing parking enforcement in-house? I see that's one of the options. Thanks, Chair.
I guess in defence of DFI, the reason that they wouldn't be able to do that is because the procurement and the negotiation process that really could potentially last between 6 and 12 months. So it does need to understand if councils are in before it goes through that process and goes for that cost. In terms of the second question, look, we've got about a year now to really look at these options, get the contracts, potentially decide on which option to go for, and get the contract advertised and recruited. Each of the options will have its pros and cons, and I guess the only thing I can say in relation to all of this, the key part from our perspective is basically delivering value for money for the ratepayer, and delivering a properly world-class service to the users of the car park. So those are the key points from my perspective and from the other 8 councils who are potentially going to go into this.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Are you okay with that, Emmett? And are you happy to propose it?
Sorry, that froze there. I'm not sure, Kevin. I mean, I would like to see maybe if we've, if there's any kind of scoping exercise that we can do. Obviously, we do want to ensure that there's value for money for ratepayers. I sometimes find with these, pardon me, these multi-council agreements that there are winners and losers. Given the different number of car parks, for example, that we have. Is there a is there a possibility of getting a further report on this, given that we have a bit of time? Because I would like to see the outworkings of the different options before making a decision, but obviously that's up to wider members as well. But it'll be interesting to hear what people think.
Just in terms of time, what we do need to do is we need to indicate, by the end of this month, that we are that we're intending to go out and look at a tendering exercise from that period. So we are under pressure, and the working group has looked at the pros and cons of all of these issues and presented a number of detailed reports at SOLAS level and across the councils within it, and has arrived at this conclusion. I mean, and I suppose what I would say is that obviously the recommendation is as it is in terms of that we want to test the market. We're not obliged to agree to, that's the reason we're testing it. We are testing it to look at that. I don't really necessarily in this committee want to go into some of the pros and cons of the other options which have been looked at, but I can assure the members that the reason that we've got to this stage is back to that point that I made around value for money and quality of service. I would say that we are one of the, we have of those 9 councils, we do have a large estate of car parks and paid car parking at that. So we're an important player within that group.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Next indicated speaker is Alderman Hussey. Derek.
Thank you, Chair. Kevin's already referred to it there. The issue of paid car parks vis-a-vis non-paid or free car parks. Are they all included within that? And given that responsibilities such as street lighting within car parks now fall to council as a responsibility, and in general maintenance of car parks, is that all within the scheme that is proposed going forward? Not to mention the provision of new car parks. I mean, we had Councillor Maguire's motion in council seeking the provision or to seek new car parking facilities for Newton Stewart, for example. Would that fall into this overall concept? So it's the question of paid car parks, free car parks, and maintenance of the car parks. Is that all part and within the mix of what's being proposed? Thank you, Chair.
Kevin.
So this is purely about enforcement, penalty charge noticing, and the IT services which enable us to do this. So this is a contract around that. It's only about the delivery of that element of it. So in relation to non-paid and maintenance, council are we have a maintenance budget. It's all in place. We deliver that ourselves. That's done from council, or we contract that out for contractors to do that. If the Newton Stewart car park, and if the proposal is to bring in paid car parking in Newton Stewart, certainly this would this would cover the enforcement on it. But this is a separate issue, rather than the provision of car parking and spaces and that type of thing. This is purely just around the management of the enforcement side of it with NSL or another provider should that come about.
Chair, very quickly back to Kevin. The proposal is not for paid car park in Newton Stewart. The proposal is to get a car park in Newton Stewart. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Eric. Councillor Barr, Raymond.
Thank you, Chair. Kevin, how much autonomy will council have over car parks in terms of flexibility and to be able to do whatever they want to do themselves?
Well, I mean, so there's an off-street car parking order, Councillor Barr. I mean, and we work within the statutory legislation within, within those limits. But council has the authority to set its own prices. It has the authority to decide which car parks are paid, which car parks are not paid. How that's provided for. We can do that within our existing contract. That's always a decision for members to decide. So yeah, we've as much authority as we need in relation to this. The issue that we're talking about here is just our ability to collect the revenue and to ensure that when people are parking in those car parks that they're doing that within the law, basically.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm happy to propose this, Chair.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Councillor Barr, because I was just going to say that we've had a number of speakers, and Councillor Doyle wants, and again, but here, Councillor Barr has proposed this and need a seconder. Emmett, I'll let you in if you're going to second it.
Yes, I will second it. I keep forgetting. Kevin, it's just actually off the back of Raymond's comment. Because these are council-run car parks, and I know this is a contractual discussion, one of the things I'm always keen about is, say, for example, I know obviously in other car parks there are different authorities that you would have to go through. But if a constituent comes to me, for example, and it's fairly obvious they've got a ticket or something for something that is, a bit iffy, is it within our power as a council to cancel those, as we are the contractor with regards to enforcement? Or do we
No.
still have to go through the NSL process, for example?
Well, it goes through DFA actually. So the customer would have to make a written appeal to DFA in relation to the ticket, and set out why and what the person's rationale is for believing that it's that it's not valid. So DFA ultimately enforce that are the arbiter of that issue. So council doesn't actually decide on yes or no in that regard.
Thanks for that, Kevin. So item 13 is the Strabane Business Improvement District, and take it away. Yep. All
right. Okay. Thanks, Chair. So, members, the purpose of this report is to secure your approval for council's consent to hold a renewal ballot for the Strabane bid to secure a second 5-year term. So we're coming towards the end of what is the first term of the bid. It actually runs up to the 31st of October 2021. The proposal in this paper is that we would hold our ballot on the 23rd of September. Council is obliged, the bid itself has officially written to Council the formally request that Council hold a renewal ballot with the aim to successfully undertake a second term as required within the legislation itself. So as set out in the report, the bid's currently serving in its final year. A full member consultation will take place to assess the needs of the business community and inform the new business plan going forward into a potential second ballot. And that new business plan will be submitted to Council for approval at the June Business and Culture Committee. Council, currently there are two providers who are able to act as a ballot holder, the local authority or Civica. All other UK bids currently undertaking a renewal ballot have opted to go with Civica, and that's including Ballymena, Belfast and Newry. The bid regulations state the requirement for the local authority to hold the ballot on bid's behalf, but the bid must pay for the ballot itself. The details of the funds required are in the report and the costs are set out. It's recommended that members approve Council to hold a renewal ballot on behalf of Strabane bid and agree that the body to be used is Civica.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Nobody has indicated they wish to speak. Does anybody wish to speak? Yep. Councillor Barr, Jason.
Thanks, Chair. Not really much to say on it. Just Strabane bid, they do great work in around the town, and they've helped different businesses and stuff throughout it. So no, just happy to propose the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jason. And I see that Emmett Doyle has seconded. So moving swiftly on, item 14 is on the European Social Fund, and Councillor Heaney, you'd like to declare an interest?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just to declare a pecuniary interest in this one, and I'm content if you think it's appropriate, even though I'm not a member, to be placed in the waiting room for the duration of this item, if you feel it's appropriate.
I don't think that's necessary, but I would defer to Stephen on that.
I think we're okay at this stage, Chair, as Connor's not officially a member of the committee yet and not voting, so I think we're okay in this instance.
Okay. So Kevin, take it away.
Yeah, so the purpose of this report is to provide members with an end of year 3 report on the 5 ESF projects which have received match funding by Council, and they agree the match funding at the same rate for the existing 5 projects for year 4, and to note the possible ESF extension and the further year 5. Members will be well aware of the through previous business and culture reports of the 5 projects were successful in securing match funding towards their ESF projects going back as far as 2018. At that time, a match funding pot annually was established of 200k for match funding purposes to the 5 projects as highlighted in the table on 2.2, and you can see the providers there within that list. Each of those 5 projects funded by Council have a focus on assisting individuals to move closer to employment through capacity building and various mentoring employment initiatives, and basically to overcome barriers in order for them to acquire appropriate skills to achieve employment. Match funding is paid out as outlined in the letter of offer itself, and it's focused on recruitment, achievement of qualifications, progression into employment, and progression into other education and training programs. So Council has supported these 5 organisations to recruit a total of just over 1,000 participants in year 3. The details of year 3 are highlighted in the table. I will draw your attention to, obviously, there have been challenges this year given the pandemic in terms of the it's been quite difficult for these organisations who offer more specialised services to those dealing with individuals with disabilities and multiple barriers. Department for Economy recognises these challenges that have been encountered and has issued guidance on how to address them. In terms of 3.4, all match funded projects normally have specified targets to achieve as outlined in their letter of offer, and officers have continued to request that these are measured and monitored quarterly and on a yearly basis. In year 3, a collective total of 1,614 qualifications were delivered. So that's achieving 132.5% of the overall target, and you can see the details highlighted again in the table within the report. At the end of year 3, a number of projects funded have either achieved or exceeded their target for into employment. That's standing at over 122%. And again, you can see the figures in terms of the target for economically inactive participants to progress into education or training has made some progress there. However, as I said, targets have not been achieved due to the suspension of face-to-face learning, which has certainly been a challenge and delivery of some of these programs. So there's been support given in terms of this, and during 2020 it was obviously not possible to pursue the implementation of any of the academies. So going forward in 2021, this is an objective that will be pursued further in order to link the supply to the demand side of the labour market. A total of 149,000 has been drawn down in year 3 of that budget, and as is detailed below in that table. A total of 149,000 has been drawn down to date in year 3 of the budget of 198 in terms of the finances. For the year 4, match funding is requested at the same rate of intervention and totals. Department for Economy and ESF have been successful in a bid for COVID-19 national funds. Therefore, these funds will be used to fund year 3, and the banked EU year 3 funding will be used to fund a year 5. So that's for noting at this stage in terms of year 5. In essence, this has allowed flexibility to remove the year 3 data from the programme and measure the projects against 1, 2, 4 and 5. The recommendations are that members approve the continuation of the match funding in the year 4 to the groups below, and to note the contents of the report.
Thanks for that, Kevin. I think we spoke earlier about the Job Start Scheme, and I think there's synergies between these. I have one question. Obviously, this is EU funded, and unfortunately we're no longer in the EU, and there are questions around how this is going to be funded after this current scheme's end. So have you any detail to give us on that? Or
Well, I mean, you can see from the report that the department has been able to, pull together finance to move to basically extend what was originally a 4-year program from the EU perspective, from ESF. So in essence, what you're seeing is they're able to do it for year 5. So that's an extension. So that's a short-term measure. I mean, on a more medium term to longer term, the UK government's Levelling Up Fund, the UK government's New Communities Fund, has been launched and will be accepting applications, which will provide some certainty for the next 12 to 18 months. That's going to be a precursor, as far as I understand, to the launching of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which, as far as I understand, is being touted as covering off on what would have been traditionally EU funded programs. I mean, I'm not over the detail in terms of the budgetary allocations on that, and that's still, I'm imagining, to be decided. But what I would say is that this council has obviously lobbied very, very heavily and written and consultation responses to both UK Shared Prosperity and indeed the Peace Plus programme in terms of the need around these types of programs, employability, and specifically around the need that exists in Derry City and Strabane in terms of our figures and obviously some of our less favourable statistics. So we've got year 4 to come now, and we're in that. With another year 5, we'll work hard now to see what we can do. But I'm sure it's going to be a challenge.
thanks for that, Kevin. So Councillor Logue wants to declare that she's on the TRIACS board. Would you like to verbally declare that, Patricia?
Yes, I'm on the board of TRIACS. Okay.
Thank you. So we have one indicated speaker thus far, and that's Councillor Doyle. Emmett.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Kevin. It's on, my screen's gone off, hold on a second. 3.4. Am I right in saying that when we're talking about level 1, is that level 1 on the National Qualifications Framework?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I suppose that follows on to my second question then. Is there a specific reason that we are offering through these programs non-accredited and below level 1 courses? Because of course, even to, for most jobs, even at entry level, you need GCSE ADC, and that's level 2. Can somebody explain that to me?
Yeah, I mean, the rules of the funding are this funding has to be directed up to including level 1 and can't go above it. And again, probably back in 14-15, when writing our response to this programme, Council were very robust in talking about the need for, definitely level 1, but being able to look at beyond level 1, and it certainly has a need. But it's the rules of the ESF funding at that time. So we work within what we could.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Councillor Mellon. Aileen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just going through the report myself as well. I could see well, Councillor Doyle was saying, but having experience and trying to get people through accreditations and go to their levels. Sometimes people need that introduction back into that learning environment. So I think giving that kind of space for them to get into that kind of way of going is good to have. And having said that, I know we've had multiple conversations within this committee and others that we need to look past entry level skill sets. If you speak to a young person, 16 to 24, ask them how many people has asked them if they wanted essential skills, for instance. We need to start moving past or creating that conveyor belt that we always talk about anyways, but I know within this one that's what this program is for, up to and including level 1. But it's just in terms of recognising them non-accredited ones as a good gateway into learning again. And so I can definitely see the merit and having them not as the paramount kind of core factor of the programme, but they should be there as a means to carefully and supportively bring people back to that environment.
Thanks for that, Aideen. So next indicated, and I'm conscious that nobody has proposed or seconded this item. So if somebody who's already spoken, if they could indicate in the chat box, or if somebody else wants to do it.
Chair, I'm happy to propose, Aideen.
Thank you, Aileen. Seconder?
Go ahead, Chair.
Thank you, Emmett. Alderman Hussey.
Thanks. Very briefly, I mean, tremendous program to be looked at there. And I'm looking at 3.4 and particularly Skills 2020, far exceeding their targets, etc., and thus impacting on the combined totals of all the organisations. Tremendous and to be commended. Is there any indication of where the participants actually come from throughout our council area, via EAs or whatever, or can that be established? Thank you, Chair.
I need to check about whether or not we have consented at the outset in terms of the participants to give us over that data and for us to share that data. So I'll come back on that one.
Thanks, Chair.
I see Councillor Heaney has put a comment in the chat box about the Prosperity Fund. Would you like to verbalise that, Conor?
It was just in relation to Kevin's point earlier. That it wasn't across some of the detail in relation to the Prosperity Fund. It's my understanding that although the Department of Finance have topped up the year 5 element of that, they allow you an additional year beyond that. The amount of funding that will come through the British government is well short of what it would have been available to the Department of Economy through Europe. So there will undoubtedly, unless something changes, be an issue down the road in relation to this.
Thanks for that, Councillor Heaney. So that item was proposed by Councillor Mellon, seconded by Emmett Doyle. That concludes the business that's open for decision. And it was remiss of me when I was talking about Ramadan, and I'll get further accusations of being a stato, but Councillor Durkin has informed me that it's also Vaisakhi, which is a Sikh celebration. So I'd like to wish the Sikh community across our city and district a happy Vaisakhi. So the rest of the agenda items 15, 16, 17, 18 and 19 are open for information. I'm going to take them all as read unless somebody would like to specifically comment on one. And I see Councillor Duffy would like to speak on item 19. So take it away, Sandra.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me in as I'm not on the committee as such, but I wanted to just comment on this report. Kevin, I think it's absolutely excellent. It's a great programme that you have laid out there in front of us. It's a really impressive panel of speakers that you have, really varied expertise in terms of it. So I'm looking forward to it, and I have been sharing a lot of information in relation to it. I just do have a couple of questions, Kevin, that have been coming to me from small traders. So it's just to get clarification around some of the stuff around it. But it is an excellent programme, and I want to commend all the council officers that have been working on it. Probably 3 questions in the main. Number 1, do we hold a database of small and independent traders? And then secondly, following on from that, if we do have a database, are we using it to contact them? And if we don't have a database, how are we effectively communicating with our small business and independent traders because some people are saying that they're missing out on information. So I'm just wondering how we do that to make sure it's as inclusive as possible and we're getting that information out to as wide a remit as possible across the city and district, because we do have a really diverse network of small and independent traders who are doing sterling work and have been amazing throughout the pandemic in terms of ingenuity and how they go about their business and stuff. So just those two questions, and then a follow-on question then in terms of the promotions the council put out. How do we choose the traders that we promote in terms of Enterprise Week, in terms of coming up to Christmas with the Christmas campaign, the Shop Local? You know, how are we choosing the traders that we're promoting within that? Is there a criteria? Is there an open call? Because I know some people those are the questions that some people are asking me. So, Kevin, it's just in terms of that information, particularly around the database. I think it's really important that we probably should have a database. But in the current climate, people want to feel the council is working for them and it's as inclusive a place as possible. So just in terms of those questions, but again, I completely commend the work of council officers in terms of the programme. It's a great programme and I really look forward to it.
Yeah,
So in terms of the database, I mean, so all of the databases that we have generally have a purpose. So first of all, it's because of GDPR and that legislation that came in, I can't remember now, 3 years ago or whatever that was. The first thing that we needed to do was we needed to actually wipe all of our existing databases and start again in terms of if somebody came onto one of our programs, or if somebody expressed an interest or logged onto our website or came to an event or just engaged with the council, we were then asking them, can we add you to our database? So that's the starting point for how we hold information about small and independent traders. So for example, we'll have a database for the Walled City Market because these are people who have either traded at the market or have expressed an interest and want to trade at the market. And the same will be said for all of our events, people who have traded at those events. So it's not the case, Councillor Duffy, that we would harvest information, gather information about people and then send it out. It has to be the other way around in relation to how we hold that information. So we do have, and we would like to have more information, and we have a page on our website which allows people to sign up to get onto our databases to be able to receive this information around, say, Enterprise Week, or you know, getting involved in any type of promotional types of stuff that we would do. So that's the first thing I would say. So it's a wee bit of a difficult area in terms of how we are able to build this information and hold that information. And actually, every 12 months, then we have to write out to those people, and they have to consent again to receive our information. So sometimes we get queries from people who say, "God, I received your information last year or 2 years ago, and I didn't get it this year," and that'll be purely and simply down to GDPR. So we work at that, and I would encourage, and we will encourage people to sign up to this to be able to receive the information. Then what we do is we try to go out as wide as we can from a social media perspective, and also from print advertising, billboard advertising, and that type of thing, to try to advertise these events to get beyond the database. In terms of how do people, say, get involved in these types of campaigns? So for example, the campaign that I can speak of is the one that we ran throughout the summer, or towards the end of the summer, which was around COVID recovery and COVID revitalization. And I do know, because I think I had a query around that we basically asked any businesses who were coming in and making applications and that type of thing to the various schemes, would they be interested in being featured? And any business that said they wanted to be featured was featured across the variety of these types of programs. So it's never a case that we wouldn't feature a business, if you know what I mean, as best as we can. So we try to be as inclusive as we humanly possibly can, and we try not to let people fall through the net, whether it's through information that they receive or don't receive. And again, we would like to grow that database as big as we possibly can, because it's in our interest to get more people signed up to these types of events. It helps our metrics and it helps us spread the message further. So if there are specific businesses that you know of, I would be delighted, and the team would be more than happy to talk to them and see whether they can take part in any of these, you know, whether it's on a brochure or on a campaign or being the face of Enterprise Week or whatever. More than happy to do that.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Are you okay with that, Sandra?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank Kevin for that information, because it does sort of clear up some of maybe the misconceptions that are out there, and particularly around the GDPR stuff. You know, I didn't even consider that when people were talking to me, so it's good to have that information there. In terms of the website page and signing up for the database, I will promote that because within the people that have been contacting me, because I know that they are interested in it and they do feel that they're missing out on information. So that's how they get on the database in terms of the website. And I will make sure that anybody that has any issues, Kevin, I'll come through yourself,
Yeah.
particularly around the promotion and advertising, because I think that, you know, there's really good businesses out there and small traders who would be dying to be promoted by the council. So no, I'll come through you on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. And Alderman Hussey would like to make a point on that also. Derek?
Thank you, Chair. And can I say Sandra has articulated that fully to the point of my own agreement. She couldn't have put it better. The SME sector out there, to me, is the core of our business community throughout the council district area. And I take on board what Kevin's saying, whereby, you know, the businesses that contact them, they attempt to have those on the various lists, etc. But you know, I sometimes feel that council could be more proactive in a reach out to business, a direct reach out. I mean, that's somebody, you know, going down a street in a rural settlement, knocking the door and saying, "How you doing? I'm from council. Can we?" I know COVID has its restrictions, etc. You know, but that actual outreach, as opposed to waiting for business to come to you. And exactly on Sandra's point, I mean, I find myself, and I'm sure every other councillor on this call does, where business comes to you and, you know, what's the council doing for me? What can they help me with? And you do your best to point them towards the various council services. So, you know, the point I'm trying to make is, yes, fantastic, but there needs to be a bit more proactivity once we move out of this current COVID situation, where business is reaching out to those businesses, particularly within the wider rural settlement and rural area in general. They're the core of business within our overall community. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Eric. I just want to raise one item, and Kevin, you don't need to respond, or I think it actually might be Aidan, just about the Tide project. So I see it's an open for information, and it's about developing marine historical tourism, and I'm particularly excited by the virtual reality aspect of that. So I think that's an exciting project and something that can give us a really good edge in the museum sector, and I'm looking forward to, you know, the paper coming next month on sort of timeline for the development of the Maritime Museum. So that's open business concluded. So I need a proposer to go on to confidential.
So proposed.
Darren.
Yeah, okay. And can somebody in the committee section indicate when we're actually not broadcasting live?